Well, good afternoon or evening, class. So today we are just going to go over repeating decimals again. We've been doing this for a few days, but I just wanted to remind you, so if you are at home and struggling, you could work through this again. Or I can change a repeating decimal into a fraction. Okay, pause this if you don't have this in your notes. But these are all the vocabulary words we've covered in class. Write these in your notes if you don't have them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually practice the steps that we've been covering. So step 1 is always to rewrite our number equal to x. This is a very important step because this actually will help us in the next steps. Okay, so that's step 1. Now step 2 is I move my decimal behind the repeat bar. So here's the end of my repeat bar. So I'm moving it to that red decimal. So there's a couple of ways of thinking about this. Well, one, my 7 is in my 10th spot, so I have 10 times that. Or you can think of it as to move from the black decimal to the red decimal, I move once, so I put in 1 0 and then my 1 in front of that. Now, when I do move that, I now come out with a whole number of 7, and then my 7s are repeating. Okay? I like to write down a few of my repeat numbers just so that as I do my steps, I can go the next. So now, as we're looking at this, and we have our little helpful box over here. This little box reminds us we do behind the repeat bar. Now we do the in front of the repeat bar. So I'm looking at this going, well, the in front of the repeat bar, I'm going to do it in green. Here's my arrow to show me where it goes. Well, my green decimal is going to go right here, which is the exact same spot as my original equation. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to change anything. So again, I'm just going to write x equals. Now this is one spot where I have to be very careful. I make sure my decimal points are lining up. Okay, so now our lovely little box tells us we are going to subtract. So I'm putting in my subtract line. Okay, so I'm going to start on the right and I'm going to move towards the left just like we always do with subtraction problems. Well, 7 subtract 7 gives me 0, or they cancel out. I don't really care how you think about that. Either way, it's fine. So those still cancel out, and I'm left with 7 subtract 0. Well, 7 subtract 0 just gives me 7. Now, I come over to the side with my x's. It reads 10x minus x. But I have to pause for a second because I remember Miss Gooch saying multiple times that there's a little 1 hiding there. So now I just think 10 minus 1, oh, that gives me 9. 9x. That's great. Put my equal sign in. Now, as I go through and I do this step, my x is not alone. I need it alone. So what I'm going to do is divide by 9 on both sides. So now I have x equals 7/9. Now I'm going to use my calculator and type it in, 7 fraction 9. Hit enter, see if it needs to be simplified. It doesn't need to be simplified, so now I'm just going to go on to the next problem. Let's go through one more. Let's look at the problem. Let's look at example number 5. Make sure you write it down if you don't already have it down. All right, again, my first step is always to set it up so that the number is equal to x. So I write x is equal to 0.714. When I rewrite it, I have to be very careful that my repeat bar only goes over the 1 and the 4. It does not include the 7. That's really important as we start step 2. Step 2 is I move my decimal to behind the repeat bar. If all of that would stop making weirdness. Okay, so here it is. Here's my behind my repeat bar. That's where I'm putting my decimal. How many places did I move it? Well, there's 1, 2, and 3. So I also know that's my thousandths position. So thousandths position, or 3 zeros, equals. And now that I have my decimal place moved behind the 4, my whole number is 714 point, and then I write down some of my repeats. And because my repeat is only over the 14, I'm going to write 1414. Now I do the in front of the repeat bar. Now this is step 3. Step 3 is always the most misstep because people always want to return it back to where it was originally. Well, we can't do that. We have to return it to where the repeat bar ends. So now the repeat bar goes right there between the 7 and the 1 because the repeat bar is only over the 1 and the 4. So I look at that, I see how many it moves over. Well, that's 1, so that gives me 10, so 1 0. Or I can say that my 7 is in my 10th spot, so I need to put a 10 there. It's my X, and then I need to be careful when I write this and make sure I line up my decimal points. So I'm going to put my decimal point in, and I have a whole number of a 7, and then I just have my repeats of 14, 14, and that goes on forever. Now I look at my little box to remind me what I'm doing. I'm subtracting as my next step. I'm starting on the right, moving towards the left. Well, 4 minus 4 gives me 0. Awesome, they cancel out. 1 minus 1 gives me 0. They cancel out. See how they keep canceling out? Yes, we set this up correctly. So now I type in my calculator 714 minus 7. And that gives me 707. Okay? So now I look over here at the left side. I have 1000x subtract 10x. I'm just going to type that in my calculator as 1000 subtract 10. And I end up with 990x. X is not alone. What's currently happening to x? Well, it's getting times by that 990. So I need to divide by 990 on both sides. So now I have 707 over 990, and I'm going to see if they simplify. Now, depending on which calculator you are currently using, all you need to do is hit, put it in and hit simplify and enter, or in my case, I have to hit a couple of extra buttons. That cannot simplify, so our numerator is 707 with my denominator being 990. Alright class, that's how we do this. There's also some really great videos on Khan Academy that I will also link to this page. Have a great night. Bye!